Alright guys, so that does it for this bag. I'm actually really surprisingly happy with the way that this turned out. Now, I just got back from taking my dog for a walk while wearing this bag, and I've got it packed with just some extra fabric that I have around, just so that it was fully filled out so I could kind of feel the way that it was meant to feel on my back. And what I gotta say is there's already a few things that I would do differently on the next bag. Now, I was debating doing another bag for this, at the same time, but what I've decided is that it's probably a smarter idea to use this bag for a little while and figure out more things that I would do differently, more things that I would change. But first off, right off the bat, is I really do wish this thing had this front flap on it, because my problem with it right now is the aesthetics of it, and I know this sounds a little bit, I don't know, a little bit weird, but the aesthetics of having that flap on there, to me, that green that we have on there ties in nicely with the green that we have on the straps and the green we have on the back piece here. All around, that would just make this thing look a little bit better. Plus, it cleans up, again, the overall aesthetic, which for me is a big part of, designing these bags, is I want them to look good. But other than that, the actual functional parts of it, one of the big things I'll say, again, just from taking that, it was like a short 30-40 minute walk, so nothing too intense, but these straps are just way too wide at the moment. So this green part, I think I basically just need to cut off that extra green part and make it flush with the black, and then it will probably be fine, which makes a lot of sense because the pattern that I'm borrowing this strap shape from, basically you take this shape that I used on the outside here and you stitch the two sides together with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and then you roll it inside out. So you're losing all this width and it basically becomes the width of the black part here. And I think just simply doing that would make a world of difference in the comfort level of this, because I'm a fairly narrow person, so what I found is that mostly it was just the green part was just digging into my shoulders and digging into my chest a little bit. It was a little bit uncomfortable. You could feel it more than I typically feel bags. Now, very few bags on the market for me are comfortable for me to carry. I don't know, again, it's just because I'm very scrawny. I have very, bones sticking out right at the surface. It's very hard to find a bag that is comfortable. So on top of that, I think what I might start doing going forward is ditching the pure leather straps and going for some padded straps. And then maybe doing like a leather accent down the middle of the strap, something like that. But mostly I want to get to doing something that is more padded and a little bit more comfortable, because the pure leather, I think that it's fine. If you have a little bit more bulk to you, you might be better. This might be better off because, this does have the nice width to it and it can disperse the weight of the bag a little bit more evenly over your whole shoulder. But again, for someone like me that is very scrawny, very bony, these kind of dig in right on those bones, then they don't have that padding to kind of help even out the pressure. So again, it's one of those things where it just comes with experience, and that's the whole point of making all these different bags. But other than that, the actual shape of this bag I think is actually really cool because it's very narrow. It's actually, it feels narrower than I was expecting, even though this is kind of exactly how I imagined it would be. We do have this very narrow profile, which is great. It's more of like an urban style bag. Again, not really like hiking or outdoorsy style. It's more like what I would call urban. You can imagine this being worn by like somebody on a motorcycle or somebody going through downtown, they're having to like sneak through transit and doors and this kind of stuff. Not really sneak, but like get through that kind of stuff. You got that narrow, very slim profile. And so that does, in my opinion, that worked out kind of perfectly. And what I also like about this is it's very much so the fundamentals of making a bag. We have this back part here, everything on the back here could basically be kept the same on every bag I ever make. We've got our straps attached to this back panel. And then on the front here is you can change up your contours, right? Right now we just have a straight kind of square bag. But you could very easily kind of add more material here to kind of get it to curve outwards, and that adds more space, more storage area. You can make this back part of the gusset a little bit wider, so you have, again, more storage area back here. You could change up the orientation to your zipper, so you're going at an angle to kind of accommodate that curvature to the front. There's just a lot of stuff you can do with this very basic shape that we've got here. And on top of that, what I do really like too is the fact that I was able to kind of think about all the different storage options. So having this exterior pocket, it gives you easy access to some quick, thinner stuff. It is pretty tight when this bag is packed, but it does, it still functions in a way. You can still keep some stuff in there easily. But this nice big zipper on the top, if we go through and take out some of this fabric, that's a decent amount of fabric that I've got jammed in there, and that's only one part of it. Then we've got all of our storage on the inside. We got that top pocket, those pen slots, all that kind of stuff that you guys have seen me put into this so far. And we've got this back laptop sleeve that I don't know if I actually captured any footage of that. But yeah, so there's a lot of good storage opportunities within within just this form factor of a bag as well. So I'm very excited about it. One thing I will point out here is that I didn't go through and finish the inside edges. I didn't do any kind of trim on there because mostly I just want to see what happens. I know exactly what is going to happen, and I just kind of want to proof of concept it. Because what's going to happen is that the cotton canvas that I have in there is going to slowly start to fray. You might be able to see it here. You know, we're starting to fray already, and I just have to keep going in and cleaning this stuff up. You know, just knocking off those little bits of frayed areas. The Cordura is actually holding up really well. I haven't really seen any significant fraying from it, and wherever it has started to fray, I just go at it with a lighter, and that melts the surface and actually bonds everything back together. So the Cordura is actually significantly easier to work with in that regard compared to that cotton canvas. But what I would have liked to do is go through and put a trim on this, but I've had so much trouble with that, and there's a special attachment for my sewing machine that allows me to put that binding tape on there super easily. So I'm going to order that attachment, and then I might try to flip this bag inside out and put that on. But mostly I'm just going to kind of see how much this bothers me, because the nice thing right now is when I fold out my edges, I'm getting these nice crisp seams all the way around the bag. And I think that that looks way better than if I try to go in and add that extra material to make the inside look good. I'd rather have the outside of the bag look good compared to the inside of the bag, if that makes sense. So then kind of the final thing that I learned with this bag that I definitely will I'll have to use going forward, because it massively affected trying to stitch this thing up, is the way and the size I put in the foam in the back here. So when I was sizing up that foam piece that I put in there, I just took my outside structure, like those main panels that I had, and I went in, I believe it was a 1/2 inch, because what I was thinking was that my pieces, I have that 3/8 that I'm going to be using for my stitching, or I have that 3/8 seam allowance that I'm going to be stitching around. Then I want my foam to be within that not be inside that 3/8, if that makes sense. It's hard to explain it, but it kind of makes sense that way. But what I ended up finding is, because I used a 1/4 inch foam, when I brought the outside pieces of fabric together, we basically lost an inch or an 1/8 of an inch on either side. So what that meant is that rather than not stitching on that foam, I now have just that outside edge of that foam inside of my seam allowance, which has made things just a little bit bulkier and not as, you know, crisp and clean. So that's definitely one thing I got to watch out for in other bags I make. Also, I'll kind of to add to that, skiving the leather I think would be something I would do differently on the neck if I was to make this same bag again. Is I would go through and just skive both edges of this gusset. I don't know why I didn't think of that originally, but definitely I would do that if I was to do this again, because that would definitely help kind of thin down those seams just a little bit, just make things a little bit cleaner. But again, overall, I'm very, very happy with this bag, even though I missed out on putting that flap on there, and even though there is some stuff I would do differently in the future, this has been kind of a good lesson. And the fact that I was able to fully design this bag myself, and it's actually something that is pretty functional. Like, I'm going to be using this to go back and forth to work for the next little while. I'm going to test it out, see again what else I would change, and then I might actually reapproach this project once I have a little bit more experience and see what I might do differently this time. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next one.